The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the mutant ape man from the Neolithic period, known as Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yeah, so...
Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. What's going on?
Yeah.
Hell of a name.
It sure is. And then, there's not really a monster from hell at all.
I mean, there is a monster, but yeah, I doubt the veracity of it being from hell.
Yeah. It's a great title, though, so I'll give him that.
Oh, yeah. I think, not to spoil too much, but I think it is a kind of a play between the angel of the sanitarium and the apparently the demon.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But, it's more metaphoric than literal in this case. Very sad.
But
oh, right.
Yeah, so we start out as we often do with, a grave robber digging up a grave. In this case, the grave robber was like, that can't be who I think it is.
Yes, it is. It's the doctor, baby.
Doctor number
Patrick
2
Troughton.
from Doctor Who.
Number
Yeah.
2.
Patrick Troughton.
So, I mean, he had already, by the time this has come out, he had already been the doctor, like, a couple years prior.
Yeah.
He started in 1966. And this is 1974.
And it's a fairly minor part. Like, he's not in it much, but yeah, although I guess that's the thing, is a lot of the people who played the Doctor, it's not like they go on to do a lot outside of that. It's kind of, genre stuff, it's like with Star Trek or whatever, like you don't see those actors move on from those things very much. So I guess that's,
I feel like the Doctor Who, at least in the early Doctor Who years, was where actors kind of went to retire.
Yeah.
To a point. I mean, not Colin Baker.
Tom Baker.
Tom Baker, thank you. Tom Baker, like, he did go on to do more stuff. I mean, they all did, but, nothing as high level or as out there as Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Like, I think one of the most noted parts of Tom Baker's post-career, I think he was in the D&D movie.
Oh.
And a minor role. And I know he was in a Star Wars. I think The Phantom Menace as a background character.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. George Lucas likes to get all those British actors and put them in minor roles in Star Wars, as we've discussed frequently, and we'll discuss again here in a few minutes.
Yes, we will. All right. So, yeah, this particular grave robber, though, he's, obviously he's rushed a little bit. But then we have a Bobby or a cop that comes up on him, and he's like, hey, what's going on in this graveyard here in this late hour?
Yeah, so he, sees that he's about to get caught. He, throws a body in the cart, and, he knows he's about to get caught, and he runs away, but he, doesn't leave the body behind.
Right.
He's like, I'm going all this trouble. I might as well try to escape with the body.
Yeah, he's a very competent grave robber, whereas the cop is not a competent cop because he just falls right into the grave while he's chasing the grave robber.
You just saw him digging out the grave.
Right. It's right there, man. It's not even that dimly lit, but yeah. He just takes a header into the grave.
And so, of course, then, the grave robber escapes. He goes to a young doctor. When I first saw him, I was like, is this Frankenstein's new assistant? I was a little confused. We find out his name is Simon Helder. Mm-hmm. The grave robber drops off the body to him and then heads straight to a pub and just starts downing shots.
Right. Now, for those of you who don't know, Simon Helder is played by Shane Bryant. And if you're a weird person like me, you know him from Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter, where he played Paul Durward. I believe that was the villainous brother of the duo.
Yeah. So then we get the grave robber. He takes a shot. Give me another. Takes a shot.
Right.
You know, he's spending all the money he just got.
Well, I like how Simon dismisses him, right? He's like, hey, here's your money. Go drink your schnapps, and when you come back, I'll have another job for you. And sure enough, he runs down to the pub, gets his schnapps.
Yeah. I think he says something like, when you've drunk that money up, come back. And, and sure enough. But instead, the cop manages to track him down to the pub and is going to take him in.
But he's ready to squeal. He's like, I've got something to tell you before you take me in.
Yeah, it takes like no persuasion at all. He's ready to turn immediately.
A tap on the shoulder, and he's like, yep, all right, I'm squealing. But then we cut back to Simon, who's reading the collected works of Baron Frankenstein. Like, when did they get collected?
Yeah, it's like a fancy it's not the diaries we've seen in the past. This is like published. It's got like little drawing of Peter Cushing as Frankenstein on the title page. It's which he's still Frankenstein and like still not viewed in a positive light by society, but somebody still published that book, so I don't know. Right.
And oddly enough, I'm not going to spoil it too much, but there is a little bit of continuity from the last Cushing Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm, yes.
And I think that's pretty interesting that we have that through line. So, all right. But yeah, so let's go ahead and continue.
So, he's reading the book, and he like has an eyeball that he puts into this jar full of other eyeballs. It's just
he collects eyeballs.
Everybody's got to have a hobby, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a part we're going to talk about later that I was like, oh, is this a Chekhov's eyeball? But, we'll get to that.
But so, of course, after being tipped off by the robber, the cop shows up at Simon's house, and Simon, like, flips the lights off and kind of hides in a corner because he, hears him coming.
He doesn't want to get busted carving up bodies. That guy, this Frankenstein guy, like, beheaded a couple years back, right?
Yeah. So the guard, like, comes in and is just kind of, like, looking around, seeing what's there, does not see Simon hiding in the corner. He clearly has bad night vision, just can't see anything in any kind of darkness.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why he goes to, like, carefully and slowly light a lamp while he's possibly in danger, instead of looking around the room for that said danger.
Yeah.
But then he discovers the eyeball jar.
And he picks it up, as you would if you just saw a jar full of eyeballs. And Simon realizes that, like, oh no, he's going to, like, mess up my collection. So he finally, like, gets the better of him, and he's like, give that to me. Don't mess with my eyeball collection.
He just comes out of nowhere. Don't touch my eyeballs. Those are my eyeballs.
But, of course, that scares the guard, so he drops the jar and, of course, ruins all the eyeballs.
Gets to step on a few just for good measure after he drops them.
Oh, yeah. It's that, like, and they look good. Like, I don't know if they're, like, animal ones or if they, like, manufactured them somehow, but, like, they look legit. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. But then, like, Simon is also just, like, quick to just, like, admit everything. He's just like, yep, I was going to sew all these body parts together and make a new life. And the guard's like, all right, well, then you're under arrest. And he's like, for what? I didn't do anything. He's like,
you did a sorcery, good sir. You sorcelled. Yeah. Frankenstein sorcelled, and see what we did to him. That's going to happen to you. Yeah. Nah. Oh, that's me paraphrasing, but yeah, that's kind of what
basically. So then it immediately cuts to the trial, and it kind of continues along that path where, like, everyone's just like, you're a sorcerer. And they, sentence him to 5 years in an asylum for the criminally insane. And then the judge is just outright like, yeah, we had to do this not too long ago to another sorcerer.
Right.
And Simon's like, Frankenstein? And he's like, yeah, it was Frankenstein.
Yep, that's the guy. Yeah. You've heard this name you saw this name at least twice already, and we've mentioned it in passing at least once or twice. So, yeah,
so then Simon arrives, like, and Simon, he's kind of similar to the Baron, the non-Cushing Baron in the last movie. Like, he's really just kind of, like, haughty and thinks that, like, the world owes him something. Like, so he shows up at the jail and he's like, I demand to see the director. I refuse to go into my jail cell until I talk to the director. Right. It's like, dude, you're a prisoner. You don't get to call the shots.
His aristocracy speaking on that case.
Oh yeah, but it actually kind of works just because he has that like tone. The director is just like, oh, there's a doctor outside. I guess I need to let him in.
Yeah,
and like it's quickly clear that like the director's up to some shady shit. So he's like, he thinks he's trying to like hide his crimes from this doctor who's been sent to investigate, not realizing that the doctor is an inmate. So he's kind of nervous and shaky and sort of like, oh yeah, Dr. Frankenstein died several years ago, and here, let me give you a drink. We'll chat a little bit more, and then when he tries to hand Simon a drink, and Simon can't take it because his arms are cuffed behind his back,
Right, that's when the jig's up. The director knows, oh wait, you're not our doctor that we're trying to hire. You're one of the patients.
So then, he like ejects him from the office. Like his tone changed. He goes from like really kind of shaky and nervous, and he's immediately like, get out of here. So, he's like instantly like he realizes he's the one in power. So he sends him out, and there's like, the two guards take him. And like this next scene it's really weird because it's just like, we know that this is a thing. Like they say they're going to bathe him, and then they do it with like a fire hose, like inflicting.
Yeah, he gets the Rambo.
Yeah. We've seen that before, but the weird thing is they just like let all of the other patients out of their room so they can just watch it happen.
Yeah. I have a feeling that Ernst and I believe Hans is the other character. They're the guards that we follow to a degree. They're just a little sadistic.
Yeah.
And they like the audience. They put up a good show to it.
Yeah, and I mean, the patients, like, this is, they're just kind of laughing and pointing. Like, they don't have anything else going on, so, like, they might as well enjoy the show. Right. But then, who should appear but the, aforementioned, believed to be dead Frankenstein.
Right. Now, also, though, watching this is Sarah, also known as the angel that we were speaking about earlier, played by Madeline Smith, by the way. If you know that name, you should. She's kind of a prolific actress, I believe. She did Up the Front, Killing of Sister George, Pussycat, I Love You. She's been in a few things. Jeepers Creepers, I believe. Oh, the 2020 like British one.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, not the other one. Don't worry about that. All right.
Yeah, and she's kind of like the only one who's not like, in on the fun. She's there, but, she doesn't seem to be like getting the pleasure out of this that everyone else seems to be.
Yeah, she's very sympathetic.
Yeah, but as soon as Frankenstein appears, he kind of just comes, appears from the side, and like everybody just gets quiet. All of the sort of like jeers just stop immediately. Right. And he sends all the patients away, and then, instructs that like Simon be dried off and his wounds cared for, and then you see like his back is just like openly bleeding from the pressure of the water.
Yeah, but clearly Frank is in control because he wants to go speak to the director and let him know that what he's been doing is obviously wrong. So he's going to give him a little bit of a dressing down during this point.
Yeah, so then like, we had the director earlier saying that Frankenstein was dead, and so like clearly he's in on like hiding Frankenstein, and so they kind of like it's kind of slow giving you the information, but it's clear that like Frankenstein has something over the director that allows him this sort of control over what's going on in the prison.
Yeah, he does let it slip that the director assaulted a patient at this point.
And in fact, when he goes to the door, like the director is in there with a patient at the time, and she does not seem to be exactly willing as far as what's going on in there. Like, we don't see anything because it's like on the other side of a door. You just hear her kind of like resisting a little bit, and then Frankenstein kind of sends her away, and Frankenstein's like, if this happens again, I'll leave. And the director's like, but you can't leave. And he's like, yeah, I'll just walk right out of here. What are you going to do?
Now, this is an interesting like turn of events from the previous Frankenstein movie, because in that one, he was kind of the abuser. Yeah, he actually assaulted one of the main characters, and now he's actually defending people from being assaulted. So there's some character growth, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it almost feels like maybe this is an intentional thing that like, they were like, oh, we took him too far. Like,
too far.
We can't make, even though Victor is not like a good guy, he's still sort of the hero of these movies. So we we can let him be villainous because he's kind of, you know, it's like the Sopranos thing or whatever. Like he's an anti-hero, but he still can't go too far.
Right, just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
To go back to that.
So we find out that now this is a little bit better than some of his previous aliases. He's going by Dr. Carl Victor.
Yeah. He's like, I'll use my first name as my last name. That'll throw him off the trail. And apparently it did.
Yeah. Once, you know, Frankenstein kind of threatens that and the director knows who's boss again, like Frankenstein is like, the guards are abusing the patients. That has to stop. And I need more medical supplies, but when I went to buy them, they wouldn't give them to me because they said you didn't pay for the last batch. And the director's like, well, I couldn't afford it. You know, we just don't have the budget for it. And Frankenstein's like, I know you spent some of the patient library money on your collector's items for yourself, and he like points to this book, and you kind of get the notion that like it's porn, like you know, it's hard to come across. Yeah. So the director is using the patient's library money for porn. So Frankenstein's like, you know, you can use some of the medical supply budget for the medical supplies I want.
Yeah, but then he's like, as extra payment, we're going to have a brandy. I mean, I'm going to steal this bottle of brandy. Goodbye.
Yeah, that was just such a baller move at the end. Like, he's like, I'm going to have a drink. And he's like, oh, sure, let's pour some drinks. And he's like, nah, I'm not hanging out with you. And he just walks out with a whole bottle.
Oh, that's awesome. And yeah, so we go to Sarah hanging out with Simon. And Simon's trying to get her to talk, but, you know, as these movies go, she's unable to speak, or she's mute at this point.
Yeah. And so, you know, Frankenstein comes in and says, like, you know, she's kind of known around here as the angel, you know, and of course she's like caring for Simon's wounds. So like clearly she is kind of the angel of this facility. Yeah. She's like the caring person who's taking care of everybody. And which is kind of like morphed into her role being like the nurse for Frankenstein. Like she may not have like the medical credentials, but she has the bedside manner that he needs.
She's the soothing bedside manner that Frankenstein cannot be.
Yeah, exactly. So then Frankenstein pours Simon some of the brandy, kind of looks him over and asks why he's been sent to the asylum. And Simon's like, well, I was tried by the same court for the same crimes as Baron Frankenstein. Right. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?
Yeah, Doctor who looks suspiciously like the guy I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, I've seen your picture in a book earlier today.
Yeah, you're supposed to be dead, right?
Yeah.
But nope, turns out he's been hiding here the entire time.
Yeah, so that he kind of goes into little, you know, he's like, yeah, you know, I've got blackmail info on the director, so, you know, I am Frankenstein, but I'm able to sort of live out my time here as the resident doctor of the facility under the name Carl Victor. You know, he's like, I could use you as an assistant if you know, want to get out of your
Simon lets it slip that he's a doctor, so yeah, Frankenstein's like, you're my assistant now.
Yeah.
It's just, he drafts him, it's immediate.
They decide to go on their like rounds together, and we get kind of like a montage. We kind of just meet some of the patients. Some of them end up coming back into play in the story. Some of them don't. Like they're just kind of, you know, it's not exactly a montage because it's like scene by scene, but you know, you meet like.
Well, there's Herr Mueller who thinks he's God.
Yeah,
he literally has a God complex.
Yeah, he's like standing there like fake crucified against the wall. Right. At first, I thought he was like, you know, attached to the wall in some way, but then he just like stands down. Like he's just standing there with his arms out up against the wall for no particular reason.
I mean, you know, if you were God, wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
No. All right, but anyway.
And then
there's a woman.
Oh yeah, there's a woman. I can't remember what her deal was.
More or less, she just didn't want to be fed because anytime Simon tried to give her like a spoonful of food, she would try to knock it to the ground. And then one time he actually got it into her mouth, and then she just spit it right back into his face. And Frankenstein's like, yeah, just let Sarah feed her. Yeah. That's what I do.
And then so Frankenstein goes to show him like the special patients, his sort of project patients. And the first one of those we get to see is actually not even there. There's just like an empty cell with like the bars around the windows damaged, and Victor is like, this is Schneider. He was this murderous brute who like tried to keep killing people with glass. He had this weird like glass fetish. But he
also had like a pituitary thing where he grew into like, you know, he got super strong and his physiology changed a bit.
Yeah, and so he, I guess, got strong enough that he managed to break the window bars and attempted suicide. And, like, we're kind of led to believe that, like, you know, he's not around anymore.
Yeah, he jumped 30 feet to the ground, which they were like, oh, that should have killed him instantly. And Frankenstein's like, nope, took him 10 days to die. He was so strong.
Yeah. And then we meet the professor, who is, like, this mathematician who plays the violin. I think Victor says something. He has like occasional like violent tendencies.
Yeah, he has a nervous nervous disposition, but occasional violent outbursts. Because during one time he tried to attack the director.
Yeah.
During his like entrance interview, and you know, watch out for this one. He's super dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know it. That will kind of come back into play in a little bit as well. And while they're in there, he plays a song that is, I think it's just called like "The Angel" or something. It's a song specifically for Sarah, and you know, so he plays this beautiful song, and then they move to the next room where they meet like this brilliant sculptor, who like they say his brain has atrophied and he can't sculpt anymore, but like. It seems like it happened really quickly because, like, Victor's like, he did this, like, you know, recently, and now he can't, like, even speak, or he's just, like, gone downhill very quickly.
Right.
But he kind of...
Knowing Frankenstein, it's kind of suspicious.
Yeah, it does feel a little... Especially as things go on, you know, you'll get more that make this seem like something's going on. But the sculptor does have enough sort of, like, mental acuity. Like, he picks up this statue of an angel and, like, you know... hands it to Sarah. So clearly,
they're
like
trying to hit home with that image.
The angel thing is definitely like, you know, they're not going to let you forget that. And also clearly, like, everybody here loves her. Like, you can't miss the fact that she is, you know, sort of like the darling of this facility. Like, she's just this kind, good person, and everybody, you know, just wants to do anything they can for her because she does everything she can for them.
Right. Do you have a sense of foreboding? I'm just a weird question I'm just throwing out there. Anyway.
Yeah. Then later on, Simon is just like in his room and he sees Frankenstein entering his office and he's got like this wrapped parcel. Like you can't see what it is, but he's just carrying something kind of wrapped up in butcher paper. And then the next morning he looks out the window and he sees like people carrying a coffin out of the facility.
Right.
And like one of the people carrying it just sort of like,
yeah, he has a little spasm or something like that.
Yeah, and so they drop the coffin and it falls open and inside is the sculptor.
Yeah, Herr Tarmat.
But he has no hands.
Yeah, he's missing his hands. He's got no hands.
Yeah. So, you know, like Simon doesn't really... I mean, I think he's like, something weird's going on here, but I don't know that he immediately fully knows what's up. But, like, you know, considering that he's been reading Frankenstein's books, like I don't know, maybe he's just being kind of cagey with Frankenstein and not revealing what he knows.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if any of the Frankenstein stories are in this... from his previous adventures, he knows to be cagey. That's the smart play, right?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. But then we have the professor playing a sad song as there's some odd, like, moaning and wailing.
Yeah, it's like these really intense, it's almost, like you can tell it's a human making it, but it sounds like a human making animal sounds. Like it doesn't, it's not the kind of sounds that a person would normally make.
Yeah.
And
then, of course, our god, Herr Mueller, quotes a passage from the Bible about them being thrown out with the wailing and gnashing of teeth in the outer darkness.
Yeah. And so Simon, like, starts kind of wandering around the facility trying to track down the source of this sound. Mm-hmm. And he goes into Frankenstein's lab and, like, he pretty quickly, like, figures out, like, oh, there's a secret door right here. Like, he follows a trail of, like, it almost looked like vomit or something. I'm not sure what it was supposed to be. But like there's a trail that just leads to a wall, and the wall looks a little it's different than the wall around it.
It's like the Hanna-Barbera slightly discolored wall, so you know it actually moves.
Oh yeah, but like he can't figure out how to open it, so he just kind of like hides in a corner and waits. And sure enough, Sarah comes through, and she opens the door, and then he just like follows her in.
She goes to close it, and he's like, nope, Sarah, nope, you'll be leaving that open for me, thank you.
Yeah, and inside there's the Frankenstein's trademark secret lab.
Mm-hmm. You've always got to have a secret lab. But yeah, it looks like there's some plants, like herbal equipment. It doesn't look as overtly like scientific. It's more kind of like an alchemist laboratory.
Yeah. But then, of course, Frankenstein ends up coming in and, catching Simon in his secret lab. Mm-hmm. And Simon's like, I knew you couldn't give up your work, right. I just couldn't figure out where it was going on, but I knew it had to be happening somewhere. And so Frankenstein's like, okay, yeah, you got me. Right. I'll show you my newest creation. And then we finally get to meet Schneider, who is just this sort of like man-ape hybrid.
Right. Yeah. Very hairy, very hirsute. I like how he's wearing kind of a muscle suit. By the way, it's played by David Prowse, So back there's our Star Wars callback.
Yeah. So I think, David Prowse is the only actor who played the creature in more than one of these Hammer movies. So, he's kind of like the sort of the Karloff of the Hammer Frankenstein series in a way. Although he plays two very different creatures, but, still the creature two times in a row. But yeah, he's like, just this big, like bigger than a man normally would be. And just, the hair, the hair is almost like werewolf hair. Like it looks longer than like even what you would think of as an ape, but
but they describe him as kind of a throwback to the Neolithic era. That was my Ape Man reference from earlier. If you didn't catch on, yep.
Yeah, so it's this pituitary thing, I guess, but like, there's not really much of an explanation for how or why he's just an ape man. I think they just wanted to have an ape monster, so they just
basically
did it.
It's like, we've done the reconstituted body parts. Now let's have an ape man. That's weird science, right?
Yeah. So the only like new body parts for him are his hands. Obviously, with the sculptor who was handless, that's where the hands went. That was the parcel that Frankenstein was carrying. And Frankenstein is like, when he fell, his hands were damaged too much in the fall. Like they got all cut up and they weren't salvageable. So we just had to, or that's why we needed new hands. And
I think he also mentions that Snyder also fell on some bars on his eyes, so he needs new eyes now as well.
Yes, and Simon notices that like the surgical scars don't look great, like they're very amateur, and that's when we get sort of the callback to the previous Cushing movie. Frankenstein has like black leather gloves that he removes and reveals that his hands are like seriously scarred from the fire in the last movie. Mm-hmm. So he still has the mind of a skilled surgeon, but he does not have the hands of a skilled surgeon. So he's been sort of walking Sarah through the process, but she obviously is not a surgeon, so her work is not up to par.
Right, but that's when we learn that Simon's calling wasn't just a doctor, he was also a surgeon. So now he could be the doctor's surgeon.
Yeah. So they go back and like he cleans up, they detach the hands and put them back on with better stitching.
It's at this point I do want to mention that it's also revealed that Dr. Frankenstein says that Simon, you're so observant. I hope you witness the greatness that we're going to do here. And I'm like, he's going to take Simon's eyeballs. Like the whole thing at the beginning with the jar of eyes, he's going to take Simon's eyeballs.
That would have been an interesting twist.
Yeah, spoiler, he doesn't, but he should have. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But yes, the hand operation.
And so they do the hands, and then they also insert new eyes. I'm not really sure where those came from, though. I don't know if they maybe took those from the sculptor too, and just, obviously Simon wasn't going to notice that he was missing eyeballs from, halfway across the courtyard.
Well, I feel like Frankenstein, like, he was the original eyeball collector, and Simon just wanted to follow in his footsteps, so he created his collection of eyeballs. So maybe, yeah, that's what happened. No, it's not, but yeah.
Then we get, like, the silliest part of this movie. Simon's like, I hope this went okay. I hope everything comes together all right. And Victor's like, we shall see in the morning.
Right. And then Simon, please, I got to say this. Simon goes, well, let's hope it is he who sees. and it's like, it kind of falls flat, Frankenstein's like, oh. Then, after a moment or so, it's like he finally got the joke. Either that or Peter Cushing just cracked. And he just starts laughing, like, far more than he should have.
Oh, yeah. It's so good. And it's like, it's really the first time we've ever seen Frankenstein, like happy and, like, laughing in any of these, in any of the Cushing movies. He's always so, like, dour. And he laughs for, like, way too long, and it's wonderful.
Right. That's why I feel like it was actually Cushing just cracked. And it was like, all right, that's a pretty good joke.
Yeah, I hope that whole bit was ad-libbed and they just kept it. But it's great.
Yeah. But then we have the Herr Schneider awakens with a new set of eyes.
Yeah. And so we get the scene that we've had many times over where the monster wakes up and immediately goes into attack mode just out of, like, confusion.
Right. But luckily, Dr. Frankenstein is working on basically a potion, right?
Yeah.
It's a sleeping potion. It's supposed to make you sleep for a fortnight. I guess it's a very strong anesthesia. So, as you said, Herr Schneider goes into full attack mode, throws a bottle, grabs the remains. That's going to be a common trope throughout this, and tries to shank Frankenstein.
But instead, Frankenstein throws a bottle of his own, the aforementioned sleeping potion, and it just, like, breaks on the ground next to the monster, and, like, the fumes kind of waft up, and he just, like, falls unconscious.
Right. And it's at this point Frankenstein's like, yeah, he wanted to kill me because he's afraid of me. That's why he wants to kill me.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of Herr Schneider's go-to anyway, but, Yeah,
I mean, like, from what we know of him, he was just a violent, that's why he's in here in the first place, is he's just violent.
Right. But so we need a brain, because clearly this brain's not working.
Right.
And we have this handy-dandy professor nearby. So as we know, Frankenstein wants to preserve the brains of very intelligent people, but he's also not going... Simon makes sure that he's not going to murder the professor. He's like, you're not going to kill him.
Yeah, it's kind of, they have this whole conversation where it's like, yeah, it's a shame. Like, that'd be the perfect brain, but he's so healthy. He'll be around for another 40 years. It's just...
Yeah, exactly.
He's not going to be dying anytime soon. And Frankenstein's like, yeah, well, of course I wouldn't murder anybody, but, maybe... Things happen, Oh, also, in the background of this scene, we'll get a better appearance here shortly, but in the background while they're having this conversation, the science wheel.
The science wheel. You don't know how happy I was to see that thing.
I love it.
I know, it's so good.
But, lucky for them, just coincidentally, in the middle of the night, the professor hangs himself with a violin string.
Yeah, coincidentally. But yeah, so obviously, we don't know what happened at this point. The professor's hung up. However, we do get to see the science wheel in action.
Yes.
With some weird, like, piston thing attached to it.
Oh, yeah.
So it actually has a purpose other than spinning. I mean, it spins, but it's clearly doing something.
Yeah, it's getting to go out on a high note, finally getting used in this one.
Exactly. That's its true purpose. I feel like maybe Terence Fisher felt the same way we feel about the science wheel. And that's like the secret character of the Frankenstein movies that he's directed.
I hope so.
If only we could ask.
Yeah, so they immediately go into, like, brain surgery mode. That's why the wheel's spinning. And it is kind of a cool scene. Like, Victor's, even though Simon's more adept with his hands than Sarah was, like, he's still maybe not as skilled a surgeon as Frankenstein. So he Frankenstein still kind of walks him through it, and he's like, okay, so I need you to trim that here, and then there's going to be 3 nerves here that need to be cut, and, leave as much, extra here as you can.
Yeah, we're going to need that to tie it off later.
Yeah. So they, he gets the brain everything snipped where it needed to be snipped, and they take the brain out, and of course they put it in a fish tank.
Yeah, you got to, right? That's where brains go, the fish tank.
Meanwhile, while that's all I think Victor takes the brain out and is putting it in the fish tank, and then Simon just happens to notice the professor's violin case sitting there, and there's a patient file in the violin case that declares that the professor is incurable.
Right.
And
so that's a little suspicious.
Yeah, so Simon is immediately like, you put this where he would find it, and that he would see this and think that he couldn't be saved. So you sort of tricked him into committing suicide.
Right. But obviously Frankenstein being Frankenstein reasons himself out of it. Like, well, I couldn't fix him. Can you fix him?
Yeah.
And Simon's like, well, obviously not. I'm not a psychologist, wizard, doctor, surgeon guy with all the legal credentials that you have. Calling back to a few episodes ago.
Yeah. And the whole thing with the patient file, I just figured Frankenstein just went in the room and just strung him up himself. So I was like,
I thought he garroted him and threw him, tied it off.
Yeah, but so he was a little bit more clever about the way that he went about this.
Still, I think the garroting would have been the more merciful option to a degree.
Yeah, rather than tormenting him emotionally first and then forcing him into doing it himself, basically.
Right. You're never getting out of here. I'm not letting you escape. Wow. Okay. But there's also another great little joke here. Sarah has brought in a pot of piping hot food, and Frankenstein's excited because, this is kidney. He takes a sip, and then we move on. I'm sorry, that's just so good. In this one, it has the great comedic timing that the previous Frankenstein movie had. It's also very dry. Mm-hmm. If you like dry humor, this is for you. But if not, you may not find it as humorous as I do. My sense of humor, you need a sip of water to chase it down with. But
and there's also another little funny bit here. So they, of course, they take the good brain and put it in the fish tank, and then they have to remove the previous brain from Schneider. And when they take it out, Victor just throws it on the floor. And then even steps on it. Yeah, it's just it's trash. There's I thought that was pretty funny that he didn't even put it in some sort of biohazard, containment trash can. It's just on the floor.
Nah, just punt it. We'll fix it. We'll sweep it up later.
So then we get, again, the scene with the monster waking up, but now we've got Professor Brain inside, Snyder's monstrous body. Mm-hmm. And so when he wakes up, he immediately sees an unfamiliar large hairy body and is confused by what's going on and sort of out of control. And he starts smashing lab equipment. And then, again, sees himself in the mirror because you need that scene as well to really cement this is not the same body that you were in before.
Right. I went to sleep in this one body and woke up in this other body. Well, to sleep to be, yeah. Anyway, so as you stated, he moans out in pain because this is not my body.
Yeah. And Sarah comes in and he even kind of he can't quite speak, or he speaks about not quite as well as Karloff did in The Bride of Frankenstein, but he does get a little bit out, and he says help me. Right. But Victor and Simon come running in at that time and see that he's awake and alert and everything, but he's sitting on a bench crying.
Right. Yeah. As you probably would.
Yeah.
But of course, the unflappable Dr. Frankenstein, or Baron Frankenstein, is overjoyed that this worked. It worked so good. Let's have a drink, Simon. We'll leave the professor out of this. We're just having a drink.
Yeah, and so, like, Victor even, he calls him professor and, asks if he knows who Simon and Sarah, like, and, of course, the professor / the monster is, like, aware and remembers. Yeah. But yeah, so they have the drinks, and Simon toasts to Baron Frankenstein, creator of man. And, like, Victor seems, like, genuinely touched at this. Like, he's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Like,
I created man.
Yeah, the title, like, he's excited to have that bestowed upon him, I guess.
Yeah, after all this time of him continuously creating, or at least moving around other people's body parts, I guess.
Yeah, and so then we get, like, I feel like this scene was, like, edited down or something, because, like, the creature picks up the professor's violin and just crushes it. And I feel like they were kind of trying to, like, do a scene where, like, oh, he wants to be able to play this, but his, these unfamiliar hands and this unfamiliar body, he can't anymore. But, like, you don't really get any of the, like, the precursor to that. Like, he just picks it up and crushes it.
Yeah. I feel like, to a degree, it's like maybe it would be interesting to have let him played it, because the sculptor's supposed to have such, fine tactile hands.
Yeah.
But I guess, like you said, they're unfamiliar, regardless of how nice they are.
Yeah, and you kind of see that in the next scene as well. Like, Victor tries to get him to, like, do math, and they've got, like, a chalkboard, but he can't really write on the chalkboard. Like, his hands just are, like, shaky, and he can't, like, do the equations.
Right. It's like he grabs the chalk and just breaks it in his hands.
Yeah.
Like, crumbles it up.
And then it kind of, like, cuts to, like, later, and he's, like, getting a little better. He's, like, writing, but it looks very childish, and it almost looks like somebody relearning to write after they've had, like, a stroke or something. It's very unsteady. And just in frustration, he just, like, smashes the chalkboard.
Right. It's very sad, yeah. But he's also, as, he's getting tired. He's hungry, he's tired. This body is so weird and foreign to him, so they decide to take a little bit of a lunch break so that the professor can build his strength back up.
Yeah, and while that's going on, Victor tells Simon that it seems that the body may be, like, rejecting the brain.
Right.
But Simon's kind of like, he's optimistic. He's like, well, let's give it some time. It may establish that connection that we need. It may just be taking some time. And he's kind of eager to just kind of spend some time with the monster, and sends, like, Sarah's watching him, and he's like, you can go on, like, I'll sit with him for a while.
And then as soon as she leaves the room, just this massive fuck off glass bowl goes flying through the air right beside Simon's head.
Yeah. But so before he can do too much damage to Simon, Victor comes in, and
action Baron one more time.
Yeah, and this whole bit's great. Like, he takes, like, another kind of bottle full of the sleeping potion or chloroform or whatever. He wraps his like, jacket around it, smashes the bottle, and then just, like, throws the jacket over the monster's head. So he's just like breathing in the fumes of the chloroform or whatever it is.
Right. But by the way, can we talk about that massive shard that the monster picked up and tried to jab through Simon?
Yeah.
But, like, dug it into the cabinet behind him?
Yeah.
That was ridiculous. But, of course, as the chloroform takes over, the monster falls asleep.
Yeah, so he's out, and then Victor says, it's clear that the violent body is taking control of the brain.
Right, it's not rejecting it. It's actually, like, the hormones or whatever is actually taking over the brain.
Yeah. But he's like, the bad thing is, like, beyond that, like, the body and the brain are both, like, in peak condition. Like, everything is great. They're just not working together as well as we'd hoped. But maybe if we could breed him, then, like, the offspring would find a way to get those two things to work together.
Yeah, of course, the offspring will have the hands and brain of geniuses and a massive ape body, but not be incredibly violent.
Yeah, I mean, this, like, leap of logic seems really odd for Frankenstein, but
But who are they gonna set the monster up with? You know, who are they gonna set the creature up with? Well, there's only one person around that fits that bill.
Yeah. So.
Hi, Sarah.
Yeah, so that's Frankenstein's idea is that they're going to use Sarah as like a mother, and he even says like he wants to breed him the normal way, so that like would presumably be like not any kind of like in vitro or whatever. Like this is like we're gonna like mate them like they're like dogs or horses or something.
Which that's very Frankenstein of him to do.
Yeah,
but of course he doesn't ask her, and he's just like she'll do it. It's fine.
Yeah, and then the weirdest thing is, so like immediately after, or like in this same conversation, this is where he finally says like, or he says something about like, you don't have to worry about the whole mute thing. That's not going to affect the baby because she's actually only mute because her father tried to rape her and she hasn't spoken since then. Yeah. And you know, Simon's like, that doesn't make it better. Like that makes it worse. Like we're not going to sexually assault her again if this has already happened to her in the past. I'm going to go to the director. And... Well,
here's the thing about that. Turns out the director is her dad. So, yeah. Turns out that's why the professor attacked him.
Yeah, and that's why Victor's had his run of the place this whole time. So, like, everything kind of falls into place with that. It's like, okay, he knows this happened, so now the director... you know, obviously can't really do anything to stop Victor because he knows he tried to rape his own daughter. Yeah. And yeah, of course, that's why, you know, we know that the professor has like deep feelings for Sarah. So of course, when he knows that happened, he's going to try to attack the director.
Exactly. So, so that's apparently Sarah's purpose as a woman is to reproduce.
That line, yeah.
Yeah, that's a callback.
Yeah, he literally says her real function as a woman can finally be fulfilled. Yeah.
So there's the skis ball Frankenstein that we know and loathe.
Exactly. Right. So, yeah, clearly Simon's still not okay with this plan. So he like can't go to the director. So he tries to tell the professor / the monster what's going on, and the monster's just like, well, I'm hungry.
Right.
So he's like, okay, that plan's not going to work, but I could drug this soup and knock him out. So that's what he does. He gives him some soup, and while he's unconscious, he's like getting ready to kill the monster.
Yeah, he pulls out a stiletto.
Yeah, but then like it kind of happens so fast, it's kind of hard to say what exactly happens first. But like basically, he's about to kill the monster, and then like Sarah comes in and she screams, and the monster grabs Simon's hand, and then Sarah speaks and tells the monster to let Simon go.
Yeah.
So she, because this is like, she was mute because of trauma. When this traumatic moment happens, it kind of like
she's unmuted, as it were.
Yeah. So she tells Simon to get up, and he's just like, "But you talked, you can speak." But he does listen. He gets up, and at the same time, Victor arrives, sees what's going on in the lab, and the monster kind of like attacks Victor, and then just like runs out to the graveyard where they had buried the sculptor.
Yeah, well, so at this point, Simon and Sarah have run off to get help, and like it's like the monster is tricking Frankenstein because he waits for Frankenstein to literally walk through the door, then he steps like in view of the camera right behind Frankenstein and shuts the door, and you're like, oh no, Frankenstein's dead now.
Yeah. The end of this movie gets very action packed. Like there's a lot going on.
But we have the miniature asylum, which the miniature set looked really cool in my opinion.
Oh yeah, it looked really, really good.
Yeah. But now we have the patients moaning, and the old lady is cackling, talking about how she knows the monster, or he wants revenge, I think she says.
Yeah.
And he'll soon get it.
He's like out like digging up a grave and like finds the professor's body. So, then like, as we've seen, the relationship between like a monster with a brain, like looking at his former body is pretty traumatic. We've
it's
seen
going
that.
to traumatize you.
Yeah, that's kind of been a recurring thing in a couple of the movies. And so he's clearly like upset at the sight. Meanwhile, while that's going on, the director shows up and he's got a date with him.
Right. At least she's of age and not his own daughter.
Yeah.
Or patient. So at least he's getting a little bit more, a few morals there, I guess.
But she's not much better because she just she wanted to come there because she wants to see the lunatics.
Yeah, she did, didn't she? Well, luckily this little romance is broken up by Ernst and Hans letting the director know, hey, there's this monster outside that's digging up graves.
Yeah, so he's like, okay, fine. You go deal with the monster, and then he tells the date, like, you better head home. Like, this isn't the right time, obviously. And, we see that, like, all the patients have kind of gotten loose in this process. So they're all kind of wandering around the asylum.
Yeah.
Then the monster breaks into the director's office from outside. So he's, like, gone around the building. Then kind of has, like, the professor has, obviously attacked the director in the past, and like he finally gets his revenge here.
Yeah, because he finds a big piece of glass, grabs it, and goes to town on the director. So they finally paid that off at least.
And so it finally, like, Victor was all concerned that the body and the brain weren't cooperating with one another, but here they're in perfect harmony.
Yeah, tandem, yeah.
Yeah, the professor wants to kill the director, and Schneider wants to do it with broken glass, please. Right. So they're like, team up on this, and he slits his throat with a big chunk of glass, and then the guards like start shooting him, and he's just like not phased.
Well, to take a step back, like at this point they have the keys to the armory, right? And he goes into the main cell where all the patients are, and he rips the metal door off. Yeah, and that's when Ernst and Hans pull out their like massive 19th century guns and takes a couple shots into Schneider / the professor.
And it's one of those, like, unstoppable monster thing where he just kind of gets hit, and you see his body shifts. Like, he's been hit by the bullet, but he just keeps moving. And then when he sees Sarah, he just, like, calms down immediately. And she kind of goes to, like, comfort him, but the inmates are, like, they think he's after her or something. And, obviously, they're going to defend Sarah because everybody loves Sarah. So they just all swarm the monster and kill him.
And you like it's pretty graphic. This is probably by far one of the most graphic Frankenstein we've seen so far, in that the people are literally tearing chunks out of the monster. You're not seeing the actual tearing, but you see them play with the chunks, eat them. One of them tries to feed it to their doll.
Yeah, it almost feels like a zombie movie or something.
Yeah, it really does.
And then, Frankenstein shows up, and
hey, he's not dead.
Yeah.
But he is badly beaten.
Yes. And, he yells silence, and, like, everything just stops. He just still can control the room. So he sends all the inmates back to their rooms. But, the monster is obviously completely torn apart. There's nothing left. Then, like, the ending of this is really kind of strange. Like, immediately Victor's just like, all right, so next time we can do this. He's just like, he's really, like, fixated on, like, the next time.
He's immediately like, let's go back into doing this thing that we just did.
Yeah, and it almost feels like something has snapped in him. Like, the way he's talking, like, it seems like he has lost his mind a little bit. Like, his grasp of reality is kind of, I don't know, like, a little bit detached, and
Anthony,
he's like,
have I ever told you the definition of insanity? I mean, that's what it feels like, right? He's literally been doing this over and over and over again, expecting completely different results.
Yeah,
but it happens the exact same way all the time.
Yep, you're exactly right. That's perfect.
And I feel like that's what they were going for without blatantly saying it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but we have a ending, but I would not call it an abrupt ending.
No, yeah, like we actually get sort of this, like, the monster being torn apart would, like, if it had ended there, that would have been abrupt, but we get this sort of scene that, like, he's going to keep his work going. He's like, we need to focus more on biochemistry instead of surgery. I wonder what patients we could use. Like, he's just kind of, like, in the mode to, like, it's a great way to end this movie because it feels like it's the beginning of the next movie in a way, so it kind of, like, is like a sort of cyclical thing. So it's a great way to kind of cap off the series. Like, this is never going to stop, you know?
Right. He's
like,
going to keep doing this forever.
Yeah. It's the last movie in our series, but like you can just imagine that like they just keep going and going.
Right. And possibly Simon's a victim because at this point he's already like, we're done, man. We're done. I did the thing once. I'm out. But Frankenstein's like, no, you're not. You're hitched to the Frankenstein train now, baby. We don't never stop.
Yeah, so, and they've kind of like got this sort of perfect setup now where they are, so they can kind of just keep going. They don't have to worry about the police and the way they have in the past. So yeah, he's just going to keep doing this and like descend into madness as he tries and fails over and over again.
Right. It's kind of like his own little hell. Maybe he's the monster from hell. Wait a second.
You know, you may be right.
Okay. All right. Well, that's why you come to the Frankencast, for those deep insights.
Yeah. And
where can they find us, Anthony?
Yeah, so you can find us on the socials, Twitter and Instagram at the Frankencast. You can reach out to us there, tell us what you think, tell us, what you like, what you don't, movies you want to see, other ideas for things. We're kind of in a spot where we're sort of toying with the idea of, going to Patreon at some point and, spreading into some various bonus episode territory, and we'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, we're also on a little bit of YouTube if you want to holler at us over there. Once again, let us know what you think.
So, yep, that concludes the Hammer story of Frankenstein. Sort of. So, so
wait a second.
Next week we will be doing Tales of Frankenstein, which is a pilot for a Hammer was going to do a Frankenstein television show that never got picked up, but the pilot still exists. It's around. I think you can find it on like YouTube and like archive.org. It's just I think it's public domain at this point.
Right.
But yep, so we will be discussing the Tales of Frankenstein pilot next week, kind of as like a little. I think it was filmed and took place like in the middle of the Frankenstein run, but we thought it'd be kind of a nice little coda to the Hammer series. So we'll see you next week for Tales of Frankenstein.
And as always, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.